Hi, I'm Jon Snow, and my 1002nd album is Queensrÿche Operation Mindcrime.
Hi, I'm Jeff Stephen, and you're listening to the 1002nd Album podcast. I spent 10 years going through the 1001 albums you must hear before you die, and now I'm asking people that are important to me all about the albums that are important to them. Enjoy! This is the 1002nd Album podcast. I'm Jeff Stephen, and I'm particularly excited for today's show, for I know that it's important to surround yourselves with people that have different opinions and different interests, but sometimes it's really nice to find people with common ground. And with today's guest, we both love our wonderful spouses, our wonderful daughters. We love following generally accepted accounting principles and discussing and collecting great music. Please welcome Jon T. Snow.
Hey, Jeff, thanks for having me.
Oh, it's great to see you. And the album of choice today is Queensrÿche's Operation Mindcrime. And my first question for you would be, where does the Jon T. Snow Queensrÿche story begin?
It actually begins way back in 1988. I owe it all to Def Leppard. I saw Def Leppard in Atlanta back in 1987 for their Hysteria tour. We loved it. It was just incredible. So my friend Steve and I said, we're going to go see them again. And we looked on their calendar and we saw they were in Chattanooga. So we bought tickets, drove up to Chattanooga one night, and the opening act this time was a band called Queensrÿche. And oh my gosh, they were just incredible live. Jeff Tate's vocals, I mean, he can hit some high notes, and Chris DeGarmo on guitar. I mean, it was just incredible. So I immediately go home. That weekend, I went out and bought their current album, which was Operation Mindcrime. And since 1988, I love that album. It's one of my favorite albums of all time as a result of that one show. That's how I got into it. So I even have the ticket stub, which you can't see, but I do.
That's the one big drawback of the audio medium.
Yes.
But that's great, and we have much to be grateful for with Def Leppard, of course.
Yes.
And I love those shows too, where the opener is that impressive as well, because a lot of concerts it'll be sort of like, okay, on with the show or that sort of thing, but when the opener really has that standout impact, that's fantastic.
Yeah, and it's not very often that it happens. I mean, the other band that opened for them in Atlanta was Tesla. So, I mean, they had some great opening bands, but Tesla I already knew. I didn't know Queensrÿche. So it's fun to find a band from a concert. And it's happened several times, but this one's probably been the most impactful to me overall.
I like it. I like it. And the so this would have been, so Operation Mindcrime would have been your Queensrÿche introduction then, but I guess this is their third overall in the catalog. And I know you and I both appreciate a good a visual chart as well. And on Wikipedia, they've got those great band member timelines. And I gather that over the years they have had a few constant members. And given that this is from '88, I believe it's the original lineup as well. And how would you say this one fits in with the rest of the catalog? And is there sort of a noticeable change as band members came and went?
For their first 5, 6, maybe even 7 albums, it was the same 5 guys. However, every album is different. They start off as a very heavy metal band. There's a lot of progressive and power metal in their sound. One of their albums before this, Rage for Order, they had the glam metal look. They all had to have the permed hair and the makeup. And so the look really didn't match too much as well as that album really is. And then this one, they looked more normal, and it was just more of a straight ahead rock album. They do change it up completely, I think, from album to album, which is one of the things I really do like about them. Now, they did hit a point down the road in the 90s where I think they lost themselves. And their sound, the songs weren't there. Chris DeGarmo ended up leaving. And when he left, he was one of my main reasons I love the band. So the sound for me changed a little bit. Even though Michael Wilton, who's also a guitarist, is great, they just lost something for me. And then in the 2000s, Jeff Tate, the lead singer this whole time, he left. But I had kind of already jumped off board, I think, at that point. And even though the new Queensrÿche now, there's only a couple original members, Todd Latorre or Latorre, I'm not real sure his name, is the lead singer, and he's phenomenal. But I'm just not into them like I was back in the day, I guess.
For
But I do
sure.
love the fact that not one album sounds like the other album.
Yeah. No, I'd agree with that completely. And I love that scenario where you can still sound like the band, yet not sound
Like the band.
repetitive. And so and the groups that can achieve that, especially if they did play as that five-person unit for those first five or six albums, that's encouraging to hear that they had that sort of that magic sort of equation where we
Yeah.
sounded like Queensrÿche, but always sounded different.
Yes.
And the songs would have been, I guess, a key part of that too. The now the this album as well, you said it's sort of it's a straight ahead rock album, but from what I've been reading, it's also under the umbrella of a concept album. And so I'm wondering if you could maybe summarize like what is sort of the general storyline or what is happening on Operation Mindcrime?
Oh, there's a lot. I'm not a big concept album fan, I guess, but there was just something about this one because I think it really holds up through time. This is 1988. It was recorded in 87 and early 88. So you're at the end of the Reagan era, and there's a lot of government problems, a lot of, it's Wall Street kind of thing where people are trying to make a buck. Media is kind of getting involved in sensationalizing everything. And the band just got disillusioned with everything. So they were inspired by that, by hearing stories from and this is a Canadian connection here, because Jeff Tate moved to Montreal and he got involved with some people that were kind of, I don't know if you'd call them separatists or whatever in Canada, in Quebec.
Mhm.
And listening to all their stories, he was kind of inspired to write this story and how the turmoil in the governments and all the corruption and stuff. So the story is basically this gentleman by the name of Nicky, who is a drug addict, but he's also become disillusioned with government and everything. And through his addiction, he meets some person by the name of Dr. X. I know, real original, but Dr. X is the name. And he's the head of this organization. And he gets through Nicky's drug addiction and through some brainwashing, he turns Nicky into an assassin. And he goes out, and when he gets a phone call and he hears the word Mindcrime, he goes into that state. And he goes out and he kills political activists or political people. And in that journey, he meets a priest who is not a good priest. And then there's a nun by the name of Mary, Sister Mary, who was a prostitute turned to a nun. And in his connection with her, he ends up falling in love with her. And he wants to get out, he wants to leave and stop doing this. He goes back to Dr. X and tells him, and Dr. X, of course, says no way that's going to happen. And he's going to, his addiction and everything, he just go back to being a crappy person. So he goes back to find Mary, and Mary's dead. And at that point, he completely loses it and gets arrested, and then gets put into a mental hospital. And the story starts off with him in a mental hospital, and he wakes up and he can't remember anything. And that's how the story goes through, is him remembering everything. And at the very end, in the very last song, he looks himself in the mirror and he says, I remember now. And he remembers everything that happened. And so that's kind of the story. I butchered it, I'm sure, but that's the story.
I think that's a good like the Coles notes, which
Yeah.
is nice. Yeah, that's good, and it's interesting because the I think I picked up on some of that as I was going along because again it was new to me this year. I remembered hearing the sort of Dr. X appear, and then there's the one tune, the Sweet Sister Mary. So like some of the references I did pick up on, but I definitely didn't follow the whole story all the way through. But I'm curious as to if you think that necessarily really impacts the overall experience. Do you think listeners need to have a full understanding of what's going on, or can you just sort of immerse in the music and be sort of vaguely aware of the story?
You can be vaguely aware. There are so many good songs that like could have been singles and stuff. I would say, Revolution Calling, Operation Mindcrime, Eyes of a Stranger, Don't Believe in Love. So there's enough songs on there that are just good, solid rock songs. But then when you get to something like you mentioned, Sweet Sister Mary, that's not a normal song. It is a 10.5 minute song that it's operatic, it's symphonic, it's just, there's so much going on in different things with it. And it's also a duet with Pamela Moore, who plays Mary. So you got Jeff and her singing back and forth. There's a lot of pain in that song, and it's just very different. So if you don't know the story, that song might be a little weird for you. But to me, it's one of the best songs on the album because of, I mean, there's like time changes and everything. It's progressive. It's kind of Queen-like in a way. It's a great song. But no, you do not have to know the story, I don't think, to enjoy all the songs. Because
Yeah.
the playing, I mean, musicianship on the album. Chris DeGarmo's solos on these things. If you like guitar solos, you're not going to get much better. Him and Michael Wilton are phenomenal together. Scott Rockenfeld's drumming in some of these songs is incredible. His fills, and then you've got Eddie Jackson on bass, and there's a couple songs that is bass heavy, so you really get to hear him thumping. And then Jeff Tate's vocals. If you like, he can hit some high registers. So if you like that, I mean, you're gonna love the album, regardless of the story. Yeah.
Yeah, and he already won me over with his name spelled Geoff as well. So I was already on board.
Yeah, you're on board right away. And that's the only way to spell it, right?
Exactly. But so you mentioned a couple of those tunes on Operation Mindcrime, and I'm wondering if we can go into those a little bit more. Of those ones that sort of work out of the context of the album, are there some of those sort of standouts for you that someone could just come in and sort of throw on a playlist and appreciate?
Yeah, the very last song is one of those, Eyes of a Stranger. It's melodic. It's, you know, it's got your typical, here's your verse, here's your chorus. The chorus is real catchy. It's got the guitar solo. It's really great. I Don't Believe in Love is another one. Again, songs you don't have to know the story. That's when they're a single, they just stand out on their own, and you'll enjoy them regardless.
No, I agree. And the one, I'm glad you mentioned Revolution Calling, because that was the one I put a big star beside right off the bat, where there was that one great line in there where he says, "Everywhere I look, who do you trust when everyone's a crook?" And as one of I think that was one of the first sung lyrics as well. There'd been all this sort of spoken dialogue before then, but I think that was an early sung
It's the
lyric.
very first real song on
Yes,
the album. Yeah.
that's right. And it's one of those that sadly still feels pretty relevant as well. Like you mentioned, it's 88, but 35 years later, when there's misinformation, and you mentioned the media sensationalizing things at the end of the Reagan era, then again, we're not quite out of that era yet.
I know. I still like, and there is a line in that one as well, as Warhol wasn't wrong, fame 15 minutes long. I mean, that still is with TikTok and everything
Right.
going on today. You got all these people just famous for a few minutes and then
Yeah.
they're gone and stuff. And that song, the Revolution Calling, I just said that, it really encapsulates what's the whole album is about. Why he is the way he is. What's his disillusionment is from all these things he lists out in the song. And I guess that's what I liked about this concept album, is that it didn't feel forced, and somehow the songs worked and told the story without sounding forced. Like, oh, we have to put this here because they're going to be completely lost. No, it flows just perfectly. And if you listen to it enough, you can follow that story without knowing anything outside of it. And it's easy to pick up. You just have to listen to it a lot
Yeah.
and really listen to the lyrics, because the lyrics are definitely tell you what is going on.
For sure. And I really like that idea that it's not sort of, they didn't do things for the sake of the narrative. Like the music had to flow, the story had to flow, the lyrics had to flow, but it did it in the 15 tracks they set up. It did it without having to feel like a jigsaw puzzle assembling it all. It just
Yeah.
flowed as it was.
And for me, it feels like a movie, because I can picture it in my head when there's a scene where the window rolls down, you can hear the window electronically rolling down, and the guy speaks to him, and they have those little things throughout. But man, does it help visualize everything that you're hearing. And so There's movies I like to go to all the time. If I'm flipping through the channels and Shawshank Redemption comes up, I stop and I watch it.
Yeah.
I don't care what I'm doing. That's what I'm going to do. This has that. This album is one of those that I just want to watch it. And for me, watching it is just putting it on and closing my eyes with my headphones on, and I can visualize that whole story. And no matter how many times I've heard it, I still enjoy what's going on, and I get excited when something's going to happen. And
Yeah.
it's a movie in my head.
I like that. And like Shawshank, it's a good thing, maybe the best of things, and no good thing ever dies. And so,
Right.
and it's yeah, so and I like that idea of those great audio albums can also generate those visual images for us too. And that's definitely a good mark. The one you mentioned, Jeff Tate is really impressive in the upper register. Another tune I put a little asterisk beside was Speak, where it was neat to hear him also really strong in the lower range too. I think it's the
Right.
chorus they really dropped down low in that one.
Yeah.
And so it showed some of the versatility there, which is pretty neat.
Yeah. Yeah. He's got a range on him. There's no doubt about that. And I think his voice is still hanging in there. I haven't seen him live in a while, but he's one of those artists. I think his voice is still pretty good.
Yeah.
He's a lot older now. That was
yeah.
what, 30,
35, yeah. But hopefully he's been taking care of himself and doing well. And the other one that I had a star beside right off the bat as well was the seventh tune, The Mission, where it's one of those ones that even though it was 1988, it actually took me to 20 years later. Did you ever listen to Axl Rose's, or I guess under the banner of GNR, Chinese Democracy?
I'm one of the few people that like that album.
Oh, we're in the small club, but those who like it a lot, I guess.
Yeah.
But there's the third song on that album, Better. When I was listening to The Mission, I was really taken to late 2000s Guns N' Roses, because just for whatever, it really gave me that vibe that they were going for on the track Better. And for you and me, that's a good thing. Maybe for the rest of the world, they're not quite as enthusiastic, but I was really pleased with that.
Well, that's cool. I have to go back now and listen to that album and hear that song.
Yeah. Oh, it's fun. And I guess the overall question would be, so for those reasons and more, why would Operation Mindcrime be the 1,000-second album that someone must hear?
Well, for me, it has such an emotional impact. I'm not saying everyone will get that, but there's a timelessness to it. It does, for me, it doesn't sound dated. And the story holds up today. I mean, heck, it could be about today. That's how timeless it is. But it's just, if you want an album that takes you on a journey and makes it feel like a movie, then this is the kind of album for you. You don't have to like concept albums, because for me, at times, it doesn't feel like a concept album. It just feels like a rock album. So it kind of captures both sides of it for you. That's about the best I can say.
Yeah. I like it. And speaking of movies as well, the temptation when a movie is successful, inevitably there will be a sequel. And I gather there was a sequel to this in the mid 2000s. How did the sequel work out here?
I think I've listened to it once or twice. I do need to explore it some more. Sometimes I don't think you need a sequel, and you should just leave well enough alone. So that would be my comment on that. It didn't grab me as much. And so it felt more forced and didn't feel as natural as the original did.
No, fair enough. And for every sort of movie where the original's a hit and the sequel, there's going to be the ones like Star Wars where the Empire Strikes Back takes it to the other level, but then there's going to be Speed with a Speed 2 that just doesn't quite recapture the same magic.
This is the prequels to Star Wars.
Yes.
Operation Mindcrime 2 is the prequel.
I like it.
Even though it's a sequel.
That's right.
Yeah, I can't even tell you the story for that one. That's how much I didn't really enjoy that one. Yeah.
Fair enough. So stick to the original and
stick to the original.
Yeah.
I do need to revisit the sequel and see, because it has been probably 10 years since I've heard it. So I do need to probably give it another shot.
Fair enough. But I gather there's also a bonus edition to this one, or like the special editions of the first one. And do the tracks that get added on, do they enhance the overall experience on the bonus editions of this one?
Well, the bonus editions, they're just bonus disc. They're not really from that story. There
Okay.
was nothing, I don't think any of it was left off or left out. I think they were just tracks. There's some alternate takes of it. There's some live shows from it. It's a nice box set because yeah, it does give you the live show. It does give you the videos that were made, and some of the videos are tell the story, and you can see they have the actors in there playing some of the parts. It's not the full story, but you can get a better idea from some of the visuals. So it's worth getting for the videos. But there's the additional songs on there I think are just bonus tracks. They're not really related to the story that I remember. Yeah,
Oh, okay.
yeah.
Nice. And
But of
that's
course
good.
I have it.
Yeah.
And I have the vinyl. And if it has an 8-track, I'll find that and I'll buy the 8-track.
No, I thought it would be a rhetorical question. I was like, oh, by the way, did you hear there was a bonus edition for this? I was like, I think John knows.
Yeah.
Oh, that's good. But no, a huge thank you, John, for coming today, and I'm excited to keep immersing in this one and to really appreciate the story on subsequent listens.
Well, thank you for having me. It was fun. I enjoyed it.
Excellent. Enjoy the day.
You too.
This has been the 1000-Second Album Podcast. Thanks for sharing some of your time, energy, and attention with us today. Take care.